Yes, people, how are we all? Oh, that wasn't good. There's many reasons, I think. The usual problem I have with Leeds United against lesser sides, when I say lesser sides, I mean sides that are not doing so well and have lower budgets, that the problem tends to be the way in which we naively go into games thinking, you know, we can do enough by not being enough, not being the best we can be. And we start the game really well. I was really impressed with the start. It was an excellent goal. I thought we had a good tempo. We maintained the ball. We did control the game. But then the complacency came into it where we did that thing where we missed clear chances, and there were one or two. The goal we scored was a great, excellent goal, great move. But Chris Somerville has another chance later on in that half in which he should score, and then the chance later on where Chris sets up Kamara, who, regardless of who the football player is about, is at the edge of the 6-yard box. You have to hit the target at least. No matter if you're a striker or not, you just kick the ball near the goal, not over it or side netting from there. It shouldn't be happening. It's not good enough. And we had a few ones. We had Pirro's header, Pascal Strauch at the end of the game. Regardless of how lackluster you are, or how ineffective you are, we still created more than enough clear chances to win a game of football. And these are the little moments in games and these little moments in the season where we just don't seem to be fully capitalising, and it's a bit complacent for me. But there is other reasons for that. But anyway, we'll go into that now. We'll just go into the player ratings, and I'll talk through it as I go in through the player ratings, as like we usually do. Yeah, and the first one, Ilhan Messier, the goalkeeper, of course. He's got to save it. I think got to save, or at least can't really be beaten in that area. Imagine a sorry late due to Rodon's blocking, but at the end of the day, you want your goalkeeper to save from that angle, of course. It's a difficult angle to score from, especially near post. And he should have saved it. He did make a decent save near the end, a 1v1. That was a good save, big moment, which is probably why I gave him an extra 0.5, because it was a big save. But the overall feel, and he didn't have much to do in the game again, but in the moment he did. He had one good moment and one bad moment. I can't really put it higher than that. But that goal was ridiculous. That goal was shocking. And I'm seeing many people, and we'll move on quickly to the next person because I want to talk about it. I'm seeing many people blame others for that. Cree lost the ball. That's the first step, and we'll talk about the fullbacks right now before we get into the rest of that goal, because there's a lot of problems for it. And Cree loses the ball in an area where he shouldn't lose the ball, and that's the problem with creative players. We'll get into that in a second. But anyway, yeah, the fullbacks. Look, there was an overriding theme in this for me. That's what I want to talk about. We are naive. We don't kill teams off in the way we should. We do slow down games when we're winning at times. But for me, there's an extra element to this. I think it was different. I think there's a different mode that we're not really talking about, and people are looking over massively. Farke mentioned it in his pre-match conference. I mentioned it in my last video, just to show I've got receipts. I'm not just saying it because of the result. And it was the lack of training we had before the match. And you can say it's same for both teams, but it isn't. When you have half your team, probably more than half your starting 11, most of them not there for a week and a half. The team you're playing against realistically has a week and a half extra to prepare for the game than you do. You can't do full team situational training based on the game you're playing, opposition training, how they set up, how to beat it, how to get around it. You can't really do that with 4 or 5 first team players there. It doesn't translate. And you could tell that yesterday. We didn't look like a team who were prepared enough to find ways effectively around their shape. We weren't creative. And I think that showed a lot. Another thing on that as well is the fact that, and this is ridiculous by the way, how this happens is a joke. We shouldn't have played on Friday night, simply said, in my opinion. Should have been a Saturday kickoff, like everyone else in the league. Daniel Farke said, I think there was 5 players from starting 11 who didn't have a single team training session before the game. A single one. How on earth can you prepare for a football match when you're coming back on the Wednesday night from international duty, and on the Thursday you're having a recovery session, because you have to have a recovery session before you begin team training because of the games you played in the week? Then you're expected to go and beat a team who have had, an extra week and a half to prepare for you. There's a lot of elements. Training it's everything in football, and you can't prepare for an opponent. You're not going to be creative. You're not going to find ways to get through them. You're not going to, look like a team that knows exactly what they're going to do, because at the end of the day, I don't think they did in many areas of the game. The preparation in games is literally everything. The feeling you get from training, what you achieve from training is so good. But when you don't have that, you're literally going into a game, maybe a few video clips. You can't practice it. It massively affects your performance and the output and how effective you are. It happens all the time. I see it all the time. Preparation is everything. And you never have enough time to prepare. The fact that 5 of the players had literally not a training session to prepare for this is a joke. And you saw that. We were not creative. And we'll get more onto that in a minute. And look, I don't deflect when we have a bad performance. People that watch this know that. If we play bad, I admit we play bad. If we slow down, I think we shouldn't slow down. I admit it. When players not on it, I admit it. And again, they weren't, and it was not good enough. There's a lot of context to certain performances, and something felt different yesterday. I don't necessarily think it was because of our naivety at times. I think at times the players looked jaded. The ones that had been away looked tired. They did. And I look at Archie Gray, still a decent player. I give him a 6, but looked slightly jaded at times. Just a little slower on the ball, a little lethargic on the ball. And Junior Firpo, I thought he did fine when he came in, to be honest. Again, social media's wild. He was fine. I think he did all right. Clearly not fit enough for the 90 yet. And I'd still probably prefer Sam Byram at this point. I thought he did okay. The fullbacks were all right. But Archie did look slower. He looked like a player who'd been in international duty and played 3 games last week. That's what he looked like. And then we'll get on to these guys. Joe Rodon, give him 6. And again, this is a theme I'm going to keep going with. When watching the game and analysing the game, he looked, the decision making, you saw him running out with the ball a lot more than usual. And we saw in his first game of the season when he did that. And Daniel Farke said he doesn't like it when he does that. And that's what I mean about preparation. When he's doing that so much, simply because there isn't an option on. And it's not like he was advancing, really. He'd go with the ball, and the pass originally would be, have to stop and turn to the side and give it out wide. Because it wasn't the original option there, because the scripted movements that you do in football weren't right. Because we didn't have the time to prepare for the opponents. You have time to prepare for who the striker is up against you, who the winger up is against you, the movements you do, the rotations, the triggers. There's no time to prepare for that, and you could tell. And that's why Joe Rodon had to resort a lot of the time to run out with the ball and try to create something, try to draw one in out of their position. And it didn't work. I gave him a 6. I don't think he was himself. No one played terrible. I think it was just slow and lethargic from a lot of players. A lot of understanding issues there. I thought Joe Rodon, for his typical extremely high standards, wasn't at that level. I think the first 30 minutes, the defenders were actually really solid. They won everything on the ground, in the air. But what you're looking from them in the second half is a bit of control, and they start the move off, and I think a lot of it was too slow. So I give them a 6. I give Cooper a 6.5. I thought he edged the game over Joe Rodon for me. But blaming him for the goal, which is ridiculously wild, I'll be honest with you. Creatively, and Cooper is slow. And actually, good defending, this is a principle, good defending is when you're in a position where the striker is faster than you and he's out wide and he's going in behind, delay. That is the most important thing. Delay anything in the box. And he did that. He delayed him for about 4 or 5 seconds. And then we got 7 men behind the ball. So he did his job. Fine. There's not an issue with that. What happened after that was an absolute shambles and a mess. Hence the communication, lethargicness you could see from 4 or 5 players in that goal. It wasn't good enough. Yeah, 6 and 6.5. Midfielders, again, did Kamara go away with international? I think he did, didn't he? But Kamara looked like he had more energy than Ampadu yesterday. I think Kamara, for me, was our joint best player with another one. He tried to dictate the game, and in the first half, he did. A lot of the movements, most of the movements came through him. Nothing really came from Ampadu in terms of progressing the ball, less than usual. I did think Ampadu, again, looked like a player who arrived on Wednesday night and had one recovery session, not time to prepare for the players he was playing against and the players he's playing with. And look, doing this as a living, you can see when a team's not prepared and when a team's not had time to practice against the opponents they're playing. And that was evident for me. They didn't have enough time. And the opponents, you could tell they had a good shape, solid shape. And we didn't find the movements. We didn't train enough to find the movements to create spaces. But what we did see with the goal was we did do that because we have that natural talent. And at times you have those movements that you do every week. And we see those, the Kamara, Somerville, Rutter combinations every week. It was clear to me, analysing, just watching the game, in a way where I'm thinking, right, what's the plan here on the ball? How are we breaking them down? There wasn't necessarily that. There wasn't triggers. There wasn't forward movement. Was slow. There was no second movements. Everything was right. I'll move here, and then it was, where do I go now? How do we get through this bit? We didn't find space in a way we usually do, and that's for me down to the lack of preparation. And again, the players have to take that because this is the situation they're in, and they didn't deal with it in the best way. Mara, 7. Ampadu, for his standard, 6. He was bad, but for his standard, didn't control the game. Wasn't effective enough. Dan James, again, I was watching Dan James and just looked 3 or 4 yards off his usual pace. I think he was getting the ball in areas where he had 2 men around him. And he couldn't beat a man because there was always a guy covering. And then again, they didn't give him space to beat him. They always had guys close to him to the point where he couldn't knock it round them. And this is what I talk about, the training stuff. And I'm going into this, do this every day. It's clear to me that what happened. He wasn't on it. He didn't have time to prepare. He didn't look on it at all. Snatching at shots, used sometimes with the cross or take a man on, didn't seem to know, didn't really have the backup or support much, which I found strange. So yeah, I give Dan a 5.5. It wasn't his best performance by any means. He's, no way. Cree, again, look, you could tell he wasn't international duty. You see my point now. Cree was creative. He did move around a lot. He picked up the ball up in spaces. He found spaces, which other players didn't do. He was full of energy. He was quieter in the second half, but still had moments where he created chances for Leeds. Scored a good goal, really good goal, excellent finish from Cree Somerville. And he's coming on a lot this season. He's kind of becoming our main man, if he isn't already. And it's hard for a player to constantly try to be creative when everyone on the team is kind of not on your wavelength. And I thought he dealt with that well. I thought he did well in what he could. Again, should have scored a second. We've had an assist. But in general course of the game, I can't criticise a player who's arguably done more than anyone else. And he's got a great goal. So I give Cree a 7. I thought he was decent for us. Him and Kamara, for me, were the two that looked like they had more energy than anyone else. Looked like they had more understanding than anyone else. Looked like they found the spaces more than anyone else did. That's my observation of that. Front 2, again, I think Jorginho, and I'll be honest, look, everyone knows my opinion on Jorginho Rutter. Wasn't it? He looked tired. He looked slower. And this is what I mean about the spaces, right? Just A trait of Georgino Rutter and what he does in games, he's so good at finding spaces to pick the ball up on the half turn and literally taking three men on, or finding spaces where there's no one near him. I don't think he did that once in the game. Even for the goal, he didn't really. He found a bit of a space, but he was marked. It was really good passing, really good movement. And yeah, 5.5 might feel harsh, but I'm talking about the standards of him and what he can achieve and the player he is. He finds those spaces, he drives at people. I can't think at the top of my head a dribble, time he dribbled past someone. He seemed slower, he seemed lethargic, he seemed like a player, again, who didn't find those spaces because you've not trained. When did he get back? He got back and he had to be careful because of the recovery from his injury, so he wouldn't have trained either. Much, hardly. And you could tell. 100% because he didn't find himself in these spaces where he's got, I can run at people. There was none of that. There's always one or two people next to him. And that comes down to training. I know I sound like a broken record, but these are the facts. This is the situation you're in as a football team. But as a player, you have to then realise the situation and step up to that. And we didn't have that in us. I think then that comes back to the expecting what we've got to be good enough. It wasn't. In the end, it should have been. We created more chances to score more goals, but it wasn't good enough in the end. And we need to get out of that mindset at times that it is good enough and we are good enough regardless of what we do. No, these teams prepare for you. These teams, especially Rotherham, they would have had an extra week with full squad. Most of their squad. I think none of their players went on internationals potentially. You can work on a shape a lot for a week. That's a lot of training. An extra day is a lot. A week is ridiculous. And you could tell because their shape was very good. As they had a decent shape. They found triggers to press. They were very effective. And although we had a lot of possession, and we did dominate a lot of the game because we naturally will do, there was not that creative spark because we didn't understand the opponents, where the gaps were, and how to make them initiate a press and get out of that. This wasn't it for me. Joe Parag gave a 5.5. Again, 1 or 2 chances he should have scored. A little slow at times. I do think there was areas that's improving in his game, and I think that's evident. His positional play is getting a little better. I think picking the ball up in more effective areas of the pitch. But again, still a little slow for me on the ball at times. Finishing wasn't on yesterday. And in a game like that, with little quality and little creativity, when you get those chances, kind of have to take them. And we didn't. So, not great. Those two, yeah. Great. This was from last week, I apologise. But Anthony, not much impact. Did score, actually. Good position from him, but was given offside. These two, I thought, I was actually quite impressed with, to be honest. And that's why I've got them in here. With substitutions, I'm going to put players I thought had an impact. Because otherwise, what's the point? Playing someone plays 10 minutes, I'm going to give them a 4 for not doing anything, when you come on for 10 minutes. But actually, these two had an impact. And that's what's evident to me. And that's what I found shocking. Because obviously, William Gnonto had gone with international duty, but he only got, 10, 15 minutes in the game. So he had that first 15 minutes of energy, And it showed because once we got the ball 1v1 with him, he stretched the play, he kept wide, he beat his man 3 or 4 times and put good balls in the box. He looked very creative. And a lot of people saying he should have started. In hindsight, that's amazing to say, but he wouldn't have done the 90 minutes. He would have been just like everyone else who went on international duty. He'd started off really strong and well, and he would have done the same thing because the recovery time. I think he came back on Wednesday, but he had a recovery training session. That's why the instruction for him was so simple: stay on the right, draw the man out 1v1, take him on, cross it in. Simple instructions. And that's why he looked effective. Paveda as well. I thought he showed energy, and that's what I mean. You could tell he'd had longer to train and prepare for this because he showed energy. He found himself in dangerous pockets. Didn't always work out, but he provided more creativity in the sense that he found good areas of the pitch to play. I was quite impressed with Paveda when I came on, and this is what I mean. The fact that he looked more energetic than a lot of the players out there shows the problems we have. But yeah, that's my thoughts from it. It's so there's context to everything, and I have heavily criticised the team for starting games slow and not finishing teams off when we should have. And we should have done that with the chances we had. But I don't think as much it was a situation where we were too confident. I know Farke said that, but I don't think he's going to talk about the international too much, if I'm being brutally honest with you. But I've been in situations where you've had less time to prepare because you don't have the numbers. And you can't do a drill based on the opposition, how you're going to set up against them. You can't do opposition analysis really in depth when you have half the squad. But the players that did play and the players that got given the opportunity to play still didn't do enough. You have to find within you that little percent more. Dan James has to be his fullback once or twice more. He has to. He's better than that, regardless of how tired he is. Jorginho Rutter has to find those spaces and he has to get his touch better at times in that. Ampadu has to pick up the tempo. You watch him do a lot of the time, he's telling him to slow down. I understand that. That's probably instruction. But at times, you have to dictate when you want to switch the tempo, and he wasn't doing that enough for me. And you could tell the lack of cohesion because of the preparation that was rubbish. We can't allow that now. Regardless of the situation, the next step is recover well, train hard for the next week, prepare for the opponent's right, and there's zero excuse. 3 games coming up, 9 points. Because we're not in a situation now where we're in trouble. Nothing's bad. I see people massively exaggerating one result, saying, "Oh, we're out the top 2." Like last week, we weren't winning the league. People. 3 weeks ago, Leicester could have been 17 points in front of us. They're now what, 7? Fine. Relax. They'll probably win, so it'll be more. But then next week, there's 3 games. That could be realistic. It could be down to 1. That's the way the Championship works. It won't be. But that's how quick things change. It could be a 3 or 4 point swing in a week from either team. And then suddenly you're down half in the points difference between you. You're going, oh, actually, we're still in this. Of course we're still in this. There's so many games left, and there's January to come. We're forgetting that. We will strengthen. I'm convinced. And then after January, if you strengthen and you're fit and you can keep your players fit, that's when you get into a flow and a rhythm. Get Jed Spence back. The players are back. They lose the fatigue. They prepare well. Genuinely think January onwards for us, we can go on a huge, huge run. And we're doing fine now as long as we back up these draws with constant wins. 2 or 3 wins in a row, then a draw. 2 or 3 wins, a draw. That's fine. You can do that. So we have to just keep doing what we're doing and keep piling the pressure. I don't necessarily care about the other teams and how they're doing. You have to focus on yourself and what you're capable of. We have ways in which we can be better. I'm not going to analyse deeply the performance yesterday because I understand, from my perspective, the problems with it. Farke mentioned in the press conference, the naivety. There's also some other aspects that he won't speak about, which there 100% is. I've experienced it. The preparation is everything. And it was clear to me from everything I saw, the preparation of most of the players was not long enough, not good enough. We ain't got that excuse anymore. Have to be better. Much better. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. I appreciate all the support as usual. I know before people say it's not an excuse, and it isn't. It's true. It's preparation for a football game. It's everything. We didn't have that. They had a much better preparation than we did. It's down to internationals. We can't do anything about that. We have to get over it, and we have to deal with that better. Done it before, we have to do it again. Once you get into the thick of the Championship and you have an international in there and you have literally a recovery session, no team training session, what on earth can you do? But yeah, weren't good enough, looked tired, need to recover well and deal with it, and need an excellent performance at Ellen Road on Wednesday. That's all. No excuses now. Get on with it. Win 3 in a row. Keep up the momentum. 8 unbeaten. Let's get that to 12, 13. Wins as well.